Welcome to this MaxiFi screencast. Today we're going to take a look at the progress tracker and see how it can help us keep track of our income, fixed spending, and discretionary spending as we go through the year. Let's begin with a base plan, and I will point out just what it is that we're going to track with the progress tracker. When we go to the year at a glance report, we are able to see all on one page our total income, fixed spending, discretionary spending, and regular asset saving and withdrawal. In this case, we have $58,707 of total income, and that breaks down in these ways. We can see Jack and Jill both have $20,000 of labor income. Jack has $13,000 of Social Security, and Jill has $5,350. So that together creates a total income of $58,707. Their fixed spending is very simple. They have $3,600 in housing and $7,431 in taxes. And then their discretionary spending is $62,548, and they're asked to withdraw $14,872. So these are the items that we're going to track. When you first come to the report page, the first report you see is the lifetime balance sheet. Note that if you scroll down, you will see an option here to set up the current year progress tracker. If you click on this link, you come to this page where it first is asking you to kind of review things. It shows that our projected income is $58,707. Again, if that's not right, you need to fix that in the base report. It's just pulling in these numbers from the base report, the $40,000, $20K each of labor, and then the combined household Social Security of $18,707. So we click continue, and now we review also our fixed spending and saving. The fixed spending is the $2,800 in property tax, the $800 insurance. So that's very simple. And again, if we see that those numbers are wrong, we need to fix them in the base plan. We don't try to fix them here. And while we're on this screen, notice that we're not tracking federal and state income tax. We pay last year's income tax in the current year, and we're not trying to track the payment of last year's taxes. And now we're asked to think about the $62,548 we have in discretionary spending. It offers two options. We can use a typical budget or budget from scratch. I like to use the budget from scratch, but let me show you what the typical budget option looks like. When I click go here, it has common categories, and it knows that I have $62,548 to spend. And you can see that it is used monthly as the unit of time and distributed this $62,548 in a way to use this amount up for the year. At this point, you could change the category names and enter your monthly or annual amounts, or you could remove some categories. Or if you are just practicing for now, accept these categories as is and move forward. These are easy to remove, rename, readjust, or add to later. If this is your first time through, I always feel like it's a good idea to learn how things work before committing to things too early. I don't want to use the typical budget, so I'm going to clear these categories, and I'm going to budget from scratch. All right, I have $62,548. How am I going to break that down? Well, I'm going to keep this real simple. I'm going to start with my first category of credit card. And I know that, well, actually, I don't know what my annual amount is, but I remember that I have about $3,500 a month budgeted. Okay, that's $42,000 annually. And that leaves me $20,000 not budgeted. So let me add a second category. And again, keeping this simple, let's just call it non-credit card. And here I have about $20,000, let's call it $15,000 in non-credit card expenses. That leaves me $5,548 not yet budgeted. It's fine to do that. You don't need to budget every penny. You could very well be spending less than your maximum annual allowance. So I'm going to save that and start tracking. Here it's showing me the overview page. It's not very interesting at the moment because it doesn't show our transactions detailed, but it's showing that we have income, fixed spending, and discretionary spending. But as soon as we go to transactions, we're going to review these expected year-end totals and adjust the prorated estimates. This initial transaction setup is helpful because it allows you to review and adjust all in one spot these initial estimates of where you might be so far in the year. Given that it's May now, you can see the estimates are almost half of the expected annual amount. Here you can adjust income if you are actually ahead of or behind this prorated estimate. The same goes for the other categories. This is not your only opportunity to adjust these, but it's a good place to make adjustments initially since they are all in one convenient table. So that's one option, but I find it easier to adjust them once I have the overview screen populated. So let me save all and now go to the overview screen and see what I'm looking at. In the income column on the left, we show our annual budget of $40,000 of income that we need to track and $18,707 of Social Security that we need to track. The program is aware that we're in the month of May, and so it's made an estimate that by this time of the year, I've probably been paid these amounts. In fact, that's probably pretty close because income tends to often come in steady streams. So let's leave that as it is and look at the fixed spending and saving column. Here, again, we have a simple budget to look at or simple tracking problem to look at. We have $2,800 in property tax and $800 of insurance that we want to track through the year. But let me complicate things just a little bit to illustrate. Let's say that we don't make our homeowners insurance payments on a steady monthly basis. Let's imagine that we pay them once a year. Say we paid them last month. I can edit this by clicking on the 330. I then see my initial entry here of 330. I can select this row or select the pencil, either one. That's going to move it up into the edit transaction area. And now I'm going to say paid in full in March and enter my $800 and save that. I go back to the overview screen. I see now that I have my $800 paid in full. It's red because it thinks if this is a monthly payment, then I'm over budget. But I know that this is 800 out of 800, so I can ignore the red warning. Let's look at the property tax. We know that that's $2,800 a year, but in fact, let's imagine that I make two payments a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. And I've already made my spring payment, so let's go ahead and record that. I'm going to edit this. Again, select the row. I'm going to change my entry to spring payment. And imagine that's a perfect $1,400. And when I return to the overview screen, I see that I've paid 14 of my 28. The yellow indicates that I'm close to being on track on a monthly basis. But again, for property tax and insurance here, I'm not really worrying about monthly tracking, or it doesn't matter to me that we're in May. I'm just tracking these two amounts for the whole year. I'm going to make two payments each for the year. So when I get finally now over to the discretionary spending column, I see that I have two categories that I'm tracking. One is set up as $3,500 a month, and the other one is set up as $15,000 for the year. I think it would be easier for me to look at this monthly amount, $17,500, which is the amount accrued that I've spent up to this point in the year, happens to be May. So I'd like to see this as an annual amount too, just like here, $6,250 out of $15,000, $17,500 out of, well, let's edit that. It's $42,000 a year, so let's change that to annual and change this to $42,000 and save it. And so now my rows here read 17.5 out of 42 and 62.50 out of 15. That makes a little more sense to me. All right, let me click on the credit card payment and view this transaction. Again, I'll select the row, bring it up to the edit transaction area. And instead, I could break this down in break that down into monthly payments, but I'm going to just say paid through May and get that exactly right and save it. Go back and look here. And then when my June payment comes, I can put June payment here, type CR and see my credit card category. And let's say I made $3,123 payment in June. Imagine that I got ambitious and went ahead and paid for July. And so forth. So you can see from this example how I can add transactions or edit transactions in this credit card category. But before I leave, let me point out something else. Remember how I got here. When I was in the Overview tab, I clicked on this entry here. And when I did that, it brought me to the transaction page, but they are filtered so that I'm only seeing credit card transactions. If I clear this filter by clicking here, it now is showing me all of my transactions, and I can edit others. I can click the category and sort them if I want. I can bring dog food up, for example, and edit that one and see all my transactions together. So when I return to the overview, when I look at my credit card here it's in red, it thinks I'm getting ahead of myself, that I'm spending too much for this point in the year. But I can come in here and remove the July payment. And now I'm kind of back within the parameters of green, yellow, and red. Green meaning I'm right on track, yellow meaning I'm close, or red meaning I'm getting way off for the year. If I decided that I wanted to create another category for this 5,548 that I don't have budgeted, I could certainly do that, or I could break down the non-credit card into a couple of categories. So I can click on that and add another budget. Let's say I decide I have a budget for dog food that's $500 a year. And now I'm going to click on the 0. It's May through May. Dog food. Let's say I've spent 200 of that 500. Now I'm going to return to the overview screen, and there's my budget for dog food. And now I have just 5,000 that's not budgeted. Again, I don't think it's necessary to always track every single expense, or it's fine to group them in large categories as I have done, or you can use detailed categories. You don't have to track or budget all of your 62,548. You might decide that you're going to underspend for the year and just leave some of this money unbudgeted. Okay, before wrapping things up, there's a couple of more things I want to point out here real quick. Recall that I said that the totals for income and fixed spending and saving are derived from the base plan itself. So we don't enter the 40,000 in labor or the 18,707 in Social Security or the property tax here in the tracker side. These numbers come directly from the base plan itself. So if we discover that, for example, we are going to have more labor income, we need to change that in the base profile. Let me do that and show you what happens. So we return to the base profile, and we can use Jill as an example and say that we decide she's not going to make $20,000 this year, but in fact $25,000. We save that and we rerun the report. And as usual, on the lifetime balance sheet, we're going to scroll down and look for our progress tracker. But here we notice that it's asking us to review these changes. It's going to bring those up for us. We see that labor is now 40,000, went from 40,000 to 45,000. There was also an impact on Social Security. She actually is going to get the family household is going to get a little less because of a earnings deduction, I believe. And the discretionary spending went from 62,548 to 63,047. So it's just asking us here to review those. We'll save those, and then it brings us back to the progress tracker, and here we see our 45,000 and in place of our 40,000 that we had earlier. So that's what happens when you update the base plan model and it impacts one of these numbers that you are using for income or fixed spending and saving. Notice here at the top we have 3 tabs: Overview, Transactions, and Download. If you click the Download tab, you'll be able to download this income and fixed spending and discretionary spending as a spreadsheet if you're interested in using this data as a starting point for your own do-it-yourself spreadsheet-based tracking plan. Finally, I want to point out that you can scroll to the bottom on this page. Once you're in the overview page, you can scroll to the bottom and delete the progress tracker data here through using the delete button. Everything is gone, and when you start again, you will have to rebuild the progress tracker from scratch.